in the call to worship.
The truth about Jesus is revealed to us. The church's history is one of misunderstanding and misappropriation. The fruits we are called to produce do not include racism, discrimination, or privilege. Such fruits show how we fail to glorify God and attempt to glorify our own works. The divine is present in Jesus, and John's story is a witness to that presence. Help us to believe and to live that life promised to us. And we're going to have music, hymn 479. We come because in our isolation, we need connection with a community of faith to remind us of our spiritual unity. We come to mourn the loss of what was as we face the uncertainty of what is to come. We come to anticipate the hope of justice for those who have been mistreated, murdered, or marred by our attitudes of superiority. We come seeking healing and blessing for all creation as we discover and face the world as it is, and not as you would like it to be. We come to shape sacred space in our personal space. In our physical distancing, we celebrate the divine among us, that your Spirit moves to provide us with all the breath we need. But we are reminded of the many ways your breath is denied, restricted, and held back from those who need it most. We come because this is a safe, inclusive place where diversity and uniqueness in Christ is celebrated, and we want that space to be present for all people. We come to celebrate that uniqueness and be encouraged to make our spiritual unity in Christ real for ourselves and for others. Know that God accepts you where you are, and together we can join with God to make a difference. May the peace of Christ be with you.
We learn from our ancestors in the faith. We can learn from the stories that have been handed down on because they spoke to challenges and celebrated the attempts of healing that gave people life and instilled gratitudes in their lives. We can also learn from one another. The experiences and insights we bring enrich our understanding in these ancient words. John chapter 15. I am the vine, and my Father is the vine grower. He removes every branch in me that bears no fruit. Every branch that bears fruit, he prunes to make it bear more fruit. You have already been cleansed by the word that I have spoken to you. Abide in me as I abide in you, just as the branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it abides in the vine. Neither can you unless you abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. Those who abide in me and I in them bear much fruit, because apart from me you can do nothing. Whoever does not abide in me is thrown away like a branch and withers. Such branches are gathered, thrown into the fire and burnt. If you abide in me, and my words abide in you, ask for whatever you wish, and it will be done. My Father is glorified in this, that you bear much fruit and become my disciples. As the Father loved me, so I have loved you. Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. I have said these things to you so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. No one has greater love than this, than to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends, if you do what I command you. I do not call you servants any longer, because the servant does not know what the master is doing. But I have called you friends, because I have made known to you everything that I have heard from my Father. You did not choose me, but I chose you, and I appointed you to go and bear fruit, fruit that will last, so that the Father will give you whatever you ask him in my name. I am giving you these commands so that you may love one another. I'm going to start this morning by just sharing a story. As you know, that in our past weeks, things have looked quite different for us. We needed to stay closer to home. We need to keep our distance from each other. There's a bit of stress and uncertainty about our future and our changing world. However, looking on a positive note, we find that we now have more time to relax, get to those things that we have been meaning to get to for so long, but never had the time to, or we're just too tired to think about them. Moments when we sit back and think to ourselves, well, God is really up to something, isn't he? I enjoy spending time in my garden. I always look forward to spring, walking about my yard, inspecting the beginning of those new growth. I love to see the new shoots moving up through the soil as they reach to the light, the beginning of the buds on the trees. It instills in me that sense of peace, calmness, closeness to God, happiness to be alive. However, this year was different. In my garden along the west side, there are raspberries, currant bushes, and a grapevine. Even though I expect that some of my plants do not always survive the winter, there are some that I am always assured of. Some things just never fail. Each year, the currant bush and the grapevine awaits. But this year, to my distress, something was not quite right. Things were different. It has changed from previous years. Rather than a feeling of peace, I became anxious. You might say I was afraid. There were no buds on the currant or the grapevine. In fact, the branches looked to be dead. I immediately thought to myself that I would need to cut the branches back and hope and just pray there would be life in the roots. But something told me to wait. I was not yet prepared to accept this fate. I was not prepared or wanting to change anything in my comfortable world. Yes, you might say I was set in my ways. All was good, so I brought the boat. So each day I watched closely, and when finally I had no choice but to accept there would be no more currants again, all was lost. But then I noticed the beginning of new growth at the base of the currant bush. The top branches still had no life, so I began to prune them back. But just a little each day, slowly. I wanted to be very cautious, still hoping that more of the bush would become the same as in previous years. However, the grapevine, there still was no life in it. I began to believe that I would need to cut that back too, and then make that decision. Would I begin a new vine, knowing that I would be only disappointed again someday? Maybe it would be safer not to replant, to avoid any disappointment, to safeguard against being hurt. Finally, that day arrived, and I gathered up my gardening shears to begin this unhappy task. But as I was about to cut the first branch, I noticed a bit of green. The vine was alive. It had not let me down. I just needed to believe, have more patience and faith. I kept watch over that vine, and as the branches slowly filled out with leaves, I began to think about today's scripture. I am the vine, you are the branches. That is when I decided to use this passage for today. It was perfect, easy to understand, and meaningful. But again, I failed. I was impatient. The best word for myself might be I was arrogant. I presumed that this passage would be easy. I wouldn't need to put much effort into it. Nothing was further from the truth. However, I had already decided. I had let the church office know the passage. The music team knew my decision. There just was no going back. So now what to do? Asking myself why I was having such difficulty with this passage. So I began again to read, to reflect, to pray, reminding myself I needed to keep focus. Naturally, it's easy to procrastinate. Maybe I would just not have to think about it for a while, go for a walk, do a puzzle, anything that required very little effort. But you know, there was always that grapevine in my garden to keep me on track. Or was there something or someone much greater watching over? This passage, story, drama, if you want to call it, takes place the night before Jesus' death. He tells his disciple, I am the vine. Jesus tells his disciples a story to teach them the importance of staying connected to him. He uses an example that his disciples would understand. A powerful story using the image of a fruit-bearing vine, symbols of bounty and beautiful harvests. Jesus is presented as explaining the relationship between himself and his disciple, seeking to model his relationship on his own relationship with his Father. Now, the first relationship is clearly between Jesus and God. Jesus describes himself as the vine. His Father is the vine grower or the gardener. The second relationship is Jesus, the vine, and his relationship to the branches. I am the vine, you are the branches. Yet the Father is the gardener caring for the branches, but the branches are relying on the vine, and the vine is relying on the gardener. Three relationships: gardener, vine, branches, all connected. At no point can one be without the other. Now you may understand why I found this passage to appear so easy, yet at the same time so very confusing. Yet our human world is made up of many relationships: family, friends, work, and community. So why does this concept seem so foreign to us? To bear fruit, we must be connected to the vine. Now, how does that work? Let us begin with the vine. The vine reaches down to the soil. It draws its nourishment from the earth and the water. The branches reach out towards the sun and the air to give us fruit. And the branches are so closely entwined with the vine that it's often hard to tell where one ends and one begins. Jesus has used this imagery of the vine and the branches to illustrate his love for us and our connection to him. But what is our part in this? Or should I say, what is the purpose of the branches and the production of the fruit? Again, to bear fruit, we must be connected to that vine. The vine is the source and substance of the life of the branches, and the branches must abide in the vine. That makes sense. What's all this talking about pruning? To prune means to clip, chop, cut back, weed out, or cleanse. The purpose of pruning is to obtain a maximum yield of high quality fruit and to allow adequate growth for the following season. Yes, if you don't prune your vines, they will become unruly, tangled messes. Fruit ripeness will suffer, and overproduction of the vine may lead to death. Pruning a vine ensures that the non-bearing wood is not wasting valuable nutrients, which would otherwise be directed towards fruiting. It also allows for the proper care of the vine, selection of the strongest branches, a worthwhile crop of quality fruit. Although the fruitless branches are removed, the Father tenderly cares for the fruit-bearing branches, and every branch that bears fruit, he prunes it, so that it may bear more fruit. So, do we expect it to be pruned, or do we consider ourselves so fruitful that no need for God to reach for the pruning, that there is no need for God to reach for those pruning shears? Yes, I believe pruning is necessary in our spiritual lives. Sometimes it hurts. And we may wonder if he knows what he's doing. It may seem that we are only the only branch getting pruned, while other branches need it more. Our spiritual pruning takes on many forms. We have sickness, hardships. We may have a loss of a loved one. We may be in grief. Whatever the method it takes narrows our focus and strengthens the quality of fruit. We could go on and on the meaning of spiritual pruning. Over these months, some of us have been sad, depressed, isolated. We haven't been able to hug one another. We haven't been able to get together for our loving potlucks. But lots of quality time we can spend on our free reflection on life. I've heard some say that they now see that before Cold War, they were so busy that they never took the time to listen and spend time with each other, that quality time with their loved ones, to notice all the amazing people in their community and all the surrounding communities. Maybe we did need pruning. In fact, are we pruned every time that a prayer is answered? Every time that we reach for God's word, looking for an answer and find it? Every time that small voice speaks in our hearts, in the quiet moments of our lives, are we being gently pruned, made stronger in our faith, more able to be fruitful and used to God? Yes, pruning is not a punishment. In fact, it is a reward. All those feelings of loss, sadness, grief from sickness, hardships, grief from losing a loved one, relationships, and isolation, or a combination of all. It is the vine grower who prunes away and lifts up the branches, the life of the branches, enchanting the spiritual growth by removing whatever inhibits our spiritual growth. Abide in me as I abide in you, just as the branches cannot bear fruit by itself unless it abides in the vine. Neither can you unless you abide in me. Now, there is that word abide. Abide. Accept or act in accordance with a rule, decision, or recommendation. I Googled that one. Again, there is that reference to relationship. A relationship between God and us as individuals. You cannot rely on other people's faith or experience. This is between us and God. Being a part-time Christian is not being a fruitful Christian. Why? Because Jesus wanted us to produce lots of fruit. Good fruit, like being kind, generous, and faithful. Most of all, he wants us to love others as he has loved us. But can we do this on our own? It is a difficult world. There are so many distractions out there, so many other voices demanding our attention, pulling us away from the vine. And without that nourishment, we will become weak. How can our role as the branches, now that our role as the branches can be made clear? The key to bearing fruit is definitely to remain attached to the vine, relying on the power brought forth from God. Yes, Jesus finally sums it up with his command to love one another in association with the connection we share to the true vine and to one another as fellow branches. Now, I'd like to take time here to maybe invite those who would like to perhaps share some of their thoughts on this passage and the vine.
The only thing I'd say, Mary, just again, I think you captured a lot of when you talked about relationship and relationships in this, you're right, difficult text. So, and you're also right there at the end, it's all summed up. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. So, yeah.
Thank you.
I thought, sorry, I didn't put my hand up. I just started talking.
Oh, so did
Oh, good. I just realized, and I thought the way you presented it was really beautiful. And beginning in your garden, I'm thinking what a mess my garden is. I realized that when I think about it, I normally think of the plant. I often think of the church, the community, as being sort of somewhere in there. And I'm not sure, like we're all the branches and the branches are all together and the bushes together. So, but something, I mean, being connected to God, this is a forming thought as I'm saying it, but perhaps sometimes when it's harder for us to feel connected, then it's the support of other branches holding us up that helps us to feel connected, or to get back into touch with the roots and the sap that's flowing up through them. Something like that, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Jim, yeah, for your what you're doing there, taking us there is not just the relationships of us with God and God with us through Jesus, but also our relationship with one another, which is very much what John is about. So, it's part of what John is about, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
So yes, so in closing, Jesus is the vine and we are the branches. We need to show good fruit like peace, love, and kindness. And when we don't bear fruit, we get pruned. Exactly. Not too difficult, should be easy. But as any gardener knows, maintaining a beautiful garden is hard work. It does entail patience, perseverance, and most importantly, love. There will be many surprises along the way and disappointments. Today, there's Koval, and it may be with us for a long time, maybe forever. We are missing our social gatherings, our connections, our community. We may think the branches are dead, but the vine is still alive. Jesus' relationship with us and our relationship to Jesus has not gone away. Yes, our relationship and our community is still with us. Just look at that vine. When you see a vine go and its branches grow, they kind of tie themselves in with each other. They tangle in among themselves. And if you ever tried to separate the branches of a vine, it's quite difficult. And if you do manage to separate all you have to do is wait a little while and all of a sudden it's tied back up again. And that's what it's like with us. We're still connected. We still may not be able to come together physically. We need that physical distance, and there's all those rules in place. But that hasn't changed the fact that we are still connected. We're still together, and absolutely nothing can change that. We will continue to grow. We'll continue to adapt to change, and we will continue to produce good fruit, like being kind, generous, and faithful. And perhaps one day we will look back and say, that was just a Kobo moment in time. And most of all, we will remember, this is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. We will now have a hymn. Brothers, sisters, let me serve you.
So we'll come together now, spirit of prayer, in the time of community blessings. Blessed are those who are not silent in the face of injustice, for they remind us of the work we need to do to be your people. Blessed are those who disturb us, shaking our interpretation of Scripture that promotes privilege and justifies injustice. They remind us how easy it is to misunderstand and misapply your word. Blessed are those who adapt to change, even to self-isolation, for they remind us of what it means to be resilient. Blessed are those who show acts of love and respect to those who are vulnerable, for they remind us of what it means to live a life centered on divine presence. And blessed are those around us who we do not know, for they remind us of the possibility of friendship. Hear us now as we pray the words of the inclusive Lord's Prayer. Eternal Spirit, Earth Maker, Pain Bearer, Life Giver, Source of all that is and that shall be, Father and Mother of us all, loving God in whom is heaven. The hallowing of your name echo through the universe. The way of your justice be followed by the peoples of the world. Your heavenly will be done by all created beings. Your commonwealth of peace and freedom sustain our hope and come on earth. With the bread we need for today, feed us. In the hurts we absorb from one another, forgive us. In times of temptation and test, strengthen us. From trials too great to endure, spare us. From the grip of all that is evil, free us. For you reign in the glory of the power that is love, now and forever. Amen.
Amen. I will remind everyone who would like to remain on Zoom after the worship, and we may have a time of fellowship with one another. During this season of Pentecost, this season that we celebrate the gift of God's breath among us, may we work to change and oppose those systems, beliefs, and attitudes that would deny and restrict God's breath of life to anyone. May this call to action be done in gratitude for the life, the breath that has been given to all of us. Amen.